I had met Lars Nielsen, and at that, wine festival on Avenue Montaigne. And my friend said, "Oh, this is Mr. Lacroix's assistant." And he was very charming, and he said, "Perhaps you should, contact Mr. Lacroix by writing a letter." So I did, and then I was asked to come for an interview with the directress of the Haute Couture. I guess she was, checking me out, and she said, "Well, you don't speak French, you don't live in Paris, you live in London. How do you think it's possibly going to work?" Well, this was getting nowhere, and luckily Lars came by and overheard part of this conversation, came into the office and said, "No, but hold on a minute, there's no problem. I just suggest that you take a look at his book properly, and that we set up an appointment for Mr. Pearl to meet Mr. Lacroix." And I came to meet Mr. Picard and Mr. Lacroix, and they gave me a lunch in the garden of the Maison Lacroix, and it was very convivial. He's an extraordinarily friendly man.
I met with Mr. Lars Nielsen, a Swedish young assistant from the Chambre Syndicale. One day he said, "Did you notice at Mugler they have beautiful, beautiful, beautiful corsets?" I looked at Mugler collection and I thought, who did that? It's really like vintage, or even more, not vintage, brand new things, like if the past suddenly was live. But it's Mr. Pearl.
Mr. Lacroix has a very rich sense of colour, amazing sense of colour, I think, and also of texture. And I'd not really, experienced that before. So, and opulence, not frightened of opulence, and that was very inspiring. I feel extremely privileged to have been given that opportunity to work with him.
I never attended any performance because I know it's a performer too. Just saw some picture, and I talk about these performances with Alexander McQueen as a very young student. He attended some performance by Mr. Pearl. I was not lucky enough for being in London at the time.
I don't think they really knew what to make of me in the beginning, but they allowed me to come and work if I needed to do something. And it was very small, so, they were making some space for me. It worked out, and the first time I worked for Mr. Lacroix, I had to finish my work off in Lars's little office. So the pressure in that always in that situation, is quite daunting.
Because the first time you meet with Mr. Pearl, we are not expecting anybody with such a tight waist and a very short breathing. Very hard to speak, I think. And such a beautiful face, beautiful profile, like on some sketches by English painter from the 20s or the 30s, very elegant and yes, and high collar and the tie, and perfectly cut trousers and shining shoes. And I would like to have Mr. Lacroix. And so I proposed not only my sketches, but old photos and old paintings from the turn of the century, like Gypsy girls and old things. And I was totally amazed by the result when he came back. At that time, I was working in London still, and back to Paris. And the first time he had all these beautiful things wrapped in silk paper.
And then the couture, it was really something else, because it was, I think, 5 or 6 pieces for Mugler, 1 or 2 for Lacroix, 4 for Dior, all in the space of like a month and a half. All in this little studio in London. Everybody kind of crammed in, you know, people working day and night, all these kind of characters, you know, from everything from these little young impressionable students to these kind of old dames to like every kind of walk of life. I was completely in awe of Pearl, but at the same time, I was a bit cocky as this young student, thinking, oh, I know what I'm doing. Actually, I didn't. And I had this genius ready to teach me.
Because they're taking a risk with you, you know, they could see that perhaps you could serve Mugler, but not another image, you know, and it's not Mugler, it's Lacroix, so you don't do Mugler for Lacroix. Lacroix, if you can.
And of course I was amazed the way he knows how to build a corset, but the way he does embroidery is amazing too, and so delicate and very raffiné. Oh no, Fraser was, he was so like that. It was beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And
it sort of came together, and when it was presented on Honor Fraser in the Salon Couture the night before the show, the whole place just broke out in applause, and Monsieur Picard came over especially to say bravo. So it was worth it, you know. And then soon after that there was the first client for it, and then after that they followed 4 more.
His work is full of happiness, of something like fairies. It's like canvas, and for me it's perfect because since my childhood I ever hated real life. I think that real life is nothing if we then put some fantasy or some dream, not dream, because dream is something you are not in, but another way of facing reality. And with Mr. Pearl it was really perfect. And I think that if God does exist, he much prefer life seen through such a screen of extravaganza and fantasy as Mr. Pearl. It's a little bit long time ago. I remember having been in London, and I remember Mr. Pearl and other friends in London with this guy, this performer, really bowing. So thanks, Mr. Pearl. We have been introduced once in London.
I was his bustle on roller skates. And I had a little minibar in the bustle, and I would have to hand him a glass of vodka, which looked like water. But
So Mr. Pearl is a saint, in a way.